Hello, welcome back to another lecture on this novel, Wuthering Heights, and here we are with Gothic Analysis of these chapters, chapter number 4, 5, 6, and 7. Uh, Before we move on, we should know these characters because of the similarities of the name, because of the similarities in dates and people within this story, within this novel. We should make some recognition of the names of the characters here. We have Mr. Earnshaw and Mrs. Earnshaw, the father and the mother, or the grandfather and the mother. We have Hindley Earnshaw and his wife Frances, his sister Catherine Earnshaw, who is married to Edgar Linton, and his sister is Isabella Linton, the son and daughter of Mr. Linton and Mrs. Linton. Isabella is married to Heathcliff, and the daughter of this marriage, Heathcliff and Isabella, is Linton Heathcliff. And we have the daughter of Catherine and Edgar, we have Cathy Linton, and the son of Hindley and Frances is Harrington Earnshaw. So we are going to have this family tree in each lecture, in the beginning of each lecture, in order to have a better understanding of the characters, of their relationship, and of their enmity, of their hatred, of their despise towards each other. So keep this tree in mind. Let's move on, and let's start with a summary of chapter 4. As I had mentioned in previous lecture, that you should read the text. Reading the text is only the lone surviving factor in this course, because nothing is enough. Nothing takes the place of the text itself. No summary, no pamphlet, no handout. You should read the text only in order to have a better understanding, in order to have a better view of where we are heading, what is going on, and what we are talking about. So reading the text is of great importance. So please read the text in order to have a better understanding, in order to know the style, in order to enjoy the text, because Emily Bronte's style is perfect, is amazing. You should have that reading of the text itself in order to enjoy, and then to have that understanding and perspective of what is going on. So let's have this summary here of chapter 4. Back at Thrushcross Grange, Lockwood starts feeling lonely and asks his housekeeper, Nellie Dean, to tell him about Heathcliff and Wuthering Heights. Nellie Dean says he grew up at Wuthering Heights with Hindley and Catherine Earnshaw, and tells Lockwood that Heathcliff has a dead son and is rich enough to live in a house grander than Wuthering Heights. She also explains that the young woman he met at Wuthering Heights is named Cathy, and is the daughter of Catherine Earnshaw and the previous tenant of Thrushcross Grange, Edgar Linton. Additionally, he says that Harrington is the last of the Earnshaws, a very old family. Thrushcross Grange and Wuthering Heights have been established as symbols of civilization and nature, respectively. Nellie now makes clear that the families that lived in the two houses are deeply entangled. The reference to Heathcliff's money and to Harrington's ancient family also brings up the question of class. If Heathcliff has so much money, why is he living in a weather-worn place like the Heights? And why is the high-class Harrington so rough? Active themes, nature and civilization theme, icon, class theme, icon, the point of view shifts from Lockwood to Nellie as she tells her story. Mr. Earnshaw, the former master of Wuthering Heights, was a strict but kind man. When Nellie was little, he returned from a business trip to Liverpool with Heathcliff, an orphan boy he'd found on the street. Earnshaw's daughter, Catherine, took to her foster brother almost immediately, but Earnshaw's son, Hindley, hated him. Hindley was jealous of his father's affection for Heathcliff, and expressed his jealousy by bullying him. Heathcliff responded with silence. Only Mrs. Earnshaw's wife, took Hindley's side against Heathcliff, but she died just 2 years after Heathcliff arrived. So, in the beginning, we see that Lockwood's curiosity starts killing him. He needs to know more about the story, the secret, the past secret of this house, of this family. So he asks Nellie Dean to talk more about this history of the family, and we find out that that the father, he is the father who is so kind, who is Mr. Earnshaw, who is so kind, so lively, so lovely. He brings a boy, a gypsy boy, from out of nowhere. He is Heathcliff. And once Catherine, the daughter, meets Heathcliff, she falls in love with him. She likes him. On the other hand, we have the boy. We have Hindley. He hated him because he found much affection by the father towards Heathcliff. So this is the beginning of hatred. This is the beginning of Heathcliff. He came out of nowhere. He appeared out of the blue. Let's move on to the analysis, to some Gothic analysis of chapter 4. We have Thrushcross Grange and Wuthering Heights have been established as symbols of civilization and nature, respectively. Nellie now makes clear that the families that live in the two houses are deeply entangled. The reference to Heathcliff's money and to Harrington's ancient family also brings up the question of class. So here again, we have this Gothic nature of the conflict between nature and civilization. If you remember that we have this revolution of Gothic novel against civilization, again the revolution of nature against civilization. Here it is really clear. Here we have the conflict, the war or the hatred between nature and civilization. Here Thrushcross Grange represents civilization, while Wuthering Heights is a reference to nature. So here we have this conflict, this enmity between the two. And again, the next point is orphans are another common Gothic element. Heathcliff's status as an orphan also puts him in a peculiar position in regards to class. He is a low-class person brought into a higher-class family. In other words, he is an outsider, and the fact that he was brought into the family and in some ways stole Hindley's position sets in motion the gears of revenge that will drive the rest of the novel. Hindley wants to regain his high position at the expense of Heathcliff, who took it from him. So here we have the rise, the existence of orphans. Orphans is another recurrent character in Gothic fiction. We have orphans. We have the orphan, the lonely, excluded, isolated orphan who is hated by his family, by his surroundings, and he tries and fights his way up to a higher social status. Here we have Heathcliff, the orphan who appeared out of nowhere, and we have this hatred towards him. This is another, Gothic element. This is another Gothic feature in this novel. And we have another important Gothic factor in this chapter is that the reader is taken to the past. He starts to find out about family secrets that are haunting the present. Again, this chapter represents another important Gothic feature, which is the past. Here, the reader starts alongside Lockwood. He starts to find out more about the past of this family, about the secrets of this family. That's why this is another important feature and characteristics of Gothic fiction. Fire and brimstone religion is another common feature of Gothic novels. As Mr. Earnshaw's fades, Catherine and Heathcliff live in a kind of paradise. adventuring in nature. Also note Catherine's tomboy behavior. She does not fit the stereotype of a general, genteel girl. This is the process of beautiful memory creation that will affect the future. So number one, here we have the appearance of that lovely, beautiful girl, young girl, innocent girl, who enjoys a beautiful life, later falls into despair, falls into the problems in the future. And here again we have the creation of beautiful memories that will one day affect their future, will haunt the future, this beautiful memory, which always the characters try to go back and live in that past. And another point is another storm during a major plot event. Yet the storm does not scare Kathleen or Heathcliff. Now, note how they think about heaven in terms of beauty, as if it is like nature. Again, we have some references to religion, to paradise. We have the storm, as we said in the introduction of this course, that Gothic fiction appeared as a reaction to the church, to the corruption of the church. So we have so many references to religious symbols, to religious features. That's why here we find so many references to heaven, to church, to the Bible, to paradise, to death. So these features are typical features, characteristics of Gothic fiction. Let's move on to chapter 6, and let's go to the summary. Hindley returns for his father's funeral. He brings with him his somewhat silly and ineffectual wife, Frances. As his father's heir, Hindley is now master of Wuthering Heights and makes immediate changes, such as moving the servants to the back quarters. He also forces Heathcliff to give up his education and instead to work in the fields. Yet, for the most part, Hindley ignores both Heathcliff and Catherine, who escape their domineer brother by escaping to go play on the moors. One day, Heathcliff and Catherine don't return from one of their adventures, and Hindley orders that they be locked out. Nellie, though, waits up for them, and she is there when Heathcliff comes back alone. She tells Nellie that he and Catherine had been at Thrushcross Grange spying on Edgar and Isabella Linton. Heathcliff was impressed by their house, but he thought the Linton children were idiots. When he and Catherine laughed aloud at them, the Lintons realized someone was outside. As Heathcliff and Catherine tried to escape, the Lintons' dog, Skulker, caught them and bit Catherine's foot. When the Lintons realize that Catherine is from Wuthering Heights, they bring her inside and insist that Catherine stay with them while she heals. But they are shocked at Heathcliff's rough clothes and language and refuses to let him stay with Catherine. Before leaving, Heathcliff spies on them. He sees how the Lintons fuss over Catherine and how much she likes the attention. The next day, Mr. Linton goes to Wuthering Heights and berates Hindley for letting Catherine run wild. Ashamed, Hindley blames Heathcliff and says that Heathcliff may no longer see or talk to Catherine. So again, we have the rise of the complex here. We see the rise of the conflict. We see the beginning of conflicts. We see that it is heating up. The problem, the hatred is heating up for further problems in the future, in the coming chapters. Here we see the differences between the class. Here we see the domination of Hindley over the house, over Wuthering Heights, and how he excludes Heathcliff and sends him to the farms to work with other farmers as a gesture of humiliation towards Heathcliff. And of course we have how he tries to project his domination, his distinct situation from others by excluding Heathcliff from other features of life in the house, by preventing him from seeing Catherine or talking to Catherine any further. Let's go to Gothic analysis of this chapter, Hindley takes revenge on Heathcliff by using the rules of class, male inheritance, to assert dominance, and to use that dominance to deprive Heathcliff of an education and force him to work like a common laborer. Heathcliff, along with Catherine, finds sanctuary from Hindley's vengeful in nature. Gothic fiction is a revolution to this type of male domination. So the first point we find here is that Hindley tries to assert his dominance over the house, over anybody else. And we see how he punishes Heathcliff by sending him to work like other laborers in a farm. We see also how this is a criticism. This is a critique of the typical traditional way that the society treats the females. How the male is always dominates the situation. Here we have a revolution against this type of male domination. And the second point is that Heathcliff and Catherine, who embody nature, discover Edgar and Isabella, who are more civilized. And just as Heathcliff and Harrington left at Lockwood in chapter 2, Heathcliff and Catherine's first instinct is to laugh at the civilized Lintons for being weak and silly. Yet, at the same time, they are impressed by Thrushcross Grange itself. In other words, they are impressed by the trappings of civilization, by what being civilized can get you. So here again we have this conflict between nature and civilization. The civilization of Thrushcross Grange and how it represents this civilization, this culture of the city, and how, on the other hand, Wuthering Heights is a symbolization of the nature, how they are always in conflict with each other. Okay, and the next point is that by denying Heathcliff an education, Hindley forced Heathcliff into another lower class, and the civilized Lintons are very judgmental and careful to keep out anybody of a lower class. Note also how Catherine has already learned that there are some pleasures to civilization. Again, we have this problem, this classism, this conflict between the classes, the problem and the fight over the class, over the domination between the higher and lower class, and how this novel is a critique of this classism, of this patriarchal society, of this civilization, of the male domination. And the last point here is that civilized people use shame as a weapon. And ashamed, Hindley now takes further revenge on Heathcliff by trying to separate him from Catherine. Again, we have the theme of revenge, the revenge, which is another dominant theme in Gothic fiction, and how Hindley tries to take revenge by separating Heathcliff from Catherine because of shame, because Harrington, blamed Hindley for leaving Catherine, just hang out with some uneducated, unknown, strange person who is Heathcliff. So here we have the theme of revenge again. And here we have chapter 7. The summary is: Catherine stays at Thrushcross Grange for 5 weeks. Mrs. Linton spends the time teaching her how to be a proper young lady. Catherine returns around Christmas wearing a beautiful dress. Hindley allows Heathcliff to greet her like the other servants. Catherine kisses Heathcliff hello, but teases that he's dirty compared to Edgar. Heathcliff walks out, growling that he'll be as dirty as he likes. Edgar and Isabella come to Wuthering Heights for Christmas. Heathcliff allows Nellie to make him presentable, but it turns out that Mrs. Linton allowed her children to come only on the condition that they be kept away from Heathcliff. Hindley sends Heathcliff to the kitchen. Before he can go, Edgar makes a disparaging comment about Heathcliff's appearance, and Heathcliff throws a plausible a please sauce in Edgar's face. Hindley locks Heathcliff in the attic. Catherine, though, thinks that both Edgar and Hindley mistreated Heathcliff, and after dinner she slips away from the others to visit Heathcliff. Nellie also takes pity on Heathcliff and brings him down to the kitchen for some food. While eating, Heathcliff tells Nellie that he's going to get revenge against Edgar. Nellie then breaks into her story to say that it is late and she must sleep. Lockwood insists that she continues the story right then. Here again we have the complication of the story, of the plot, of the hatred between people. Here we see how Heathcliff is a cast out, how he is being demonized, how he is being secluded from the society, how he is being thrown away from the society, and how this past is the motivating motor, okay, for future revenge, for future problems. Here we see that Heathcliff swears to take revenge from the treatment he is being faced, and we see that Hindley, locks Heathcliff in the attic. The attic, of course, is another Gothic place. We have a great book titled as Mad Woman in the Attic. It is about how attic plays a great role in Gothic fiction, and how women used to lock themselves in the attic, and how they came out with some Gothic ideas. So the attic has a very deep and heavy reference to Gothic fiction. Let's go to an analysis of chapter 7. Until now, Catherine has been natural, a tomboy, and unaware of class. Her stay at the Lintons changes the first two, as she's now a proper girl in a dress, and her comment to Heathcliff makes it clear that she's also being made aware of class and sees being civilized as a superior. The civilized higher classes assert their power by discriminating against the lower class, and they accomplish this discrimination through derogatory language. In contrast, the more natural Heathcliff expresses his resentment through violence. Catherine's actions show that even though she has been changed by her exposure to civilization, she still shares a yet deeper connection with Heathcliff. Heathcliff's vow is the first sign of this vengeful nature. Again, here we have these references to the nature and to the beginning of the problem, to the acceleration of the problem, and to how the things are getting complicated, and how this is the beginning of revenge, of vowing to take revenge in the future, and this is the foundation for further and future conflicts among characters. So in the coming lectures we will talk more about the problems, the Gothic features in this novel, and how things get complicated. So please stay tuned. Thank you very much, and bye bye.